Hello, Richard from budgetguitarist.com. Today's kind of a weird one. I've been wanting to make this video for a while and, I finally made it. These are not the 10 best guitarists who ever lived, because I don't think it's possible to designate such a thing, but I will tell you that they are 10 guitarists who have had the biggest impact on me, and probably that I like the best. So today, I'm going to talk about my top 10 favorite guitar players. So this is in no particular order. Alex Lifeson. So Alex Lifeson was obviously the guitar player for Rush. I saw the Rush Moving Pictures tour in person. It was amazing. He's played PRS, Fender, Gibson guitars, Hughes and Kettner amps, Marshall amps. And in the early years of Rush, he had like a classic rock guitar sound that I really, really loved. And then in the later years, Rush was more progressive rock, and his sound kind of evolved, and the chords that he was playing were more complicated. He's an example of a guy who really evolved throughout his career. I think he's one of the best rock rhythm players ever, and in terms of his lead guitar style, it was definitely different than anyone else. And so I was a huge Rush fan, so Alex Lifeson makes my list. Next, Brian May. So Brian May was the guitar player for Queen. Very famously, he and his dad built his Red Special guitar. And as a result, Brian May has a one-of-a-kind guitar sound, more so than any other guitar player I can think of. When you hear a song that Brian May is playing on, it's very obviously him. He sort of made famous the idea of like triple tracking guitar parts to come up with harmonies, or in some cases 4, 5, 6, 7 parts. And in terms of melodic lead playing, he's one of the best ever. Brian May is definitely in my top 10. Okay, next, Elliot Easton. So Elliot Easton was a guitar player for the Cars. I saw the Cars on their last tour. Actually, it wasn't their last tour. It was the Door to Door tour. It was the last tour with all the original band members. And honestly, on stage, they were all kind of going through the motions. You could tell that they were close to the end. Except for Elliot. Elliot was running around on stage and rocking out and just living it up, which is sort of his style of playing. So on the slide here, I put rock to rockabilly. There's rockabilly licks in that first Cars album, but there's also scorching rock guitar solos. I call him the power chord king. I think, again, he's one of these rhythm players that was just phenomenal. And his solos were crazy good. He didn't play a million miles an hour. He didn't play a million notes a second, but boy, were his guitar solos good. In a class by himself, in my opinion, Elliot Easton. So Eddie Van Halen, well, he changed how the electric guitar was played. There was before Van Halen, there was after Van Halen. And you could argue Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton, Eddie Van Halen are sort of like the big icons of rock guitar. He played with a swing that isn't often discussed, but he wasn't just a metal guitar player. He played with a vibe. He had a real vibe, as well as an attitude and a swagger, and his tone was just ridiculous. A lot of people will tell you the Van Halen 2 album was his best tone, but personally, I like the tone on Van Halen 1. I really do. I think it's amazing. And, you can get kind of close to Eddie's tone, but to really, really nail it is extremely difficult. So, hats off to the hero. Next, Ian Bairnson is a guitar player that you may have never heard of, but if you've heard of the Alan Parsons Project, then you've heard his playing. Ian played on the first Alan Parsons Project album and on the last, and on every single album. He also went on to play with Alan Parsons in Alan's solo career. And if you want to listen to how rock guitar should be played, go listen to the song Prime Time. It's not a million miles a second blazing, but it is so melodic that if I had to pick one guy, it'd be a tie between Brian May and Ian Bairnson, because they are both to me, the two most melodic players ever. And Ian, whether he's playing solos or acoustic, 12-string, nylon string, electric, rhythm, he always played the perfect part. Just an amazing player. Ace Frehley, don't laugh. Please, don't laugh. Well, all right, you can laugh if you want to. When I was a kid, there was nothing bigger than Kiss. And Ace Frehley is the guy who inspired me to want to play guitar. Flat out, it's just that simple. I had his smoking guitar poster up on my wall. I loved every Kiss album up through The Elder, and then they lost me after that. Or maybe they lost me with The Elder. I don't know. Anyway, Ace Frehley was my first exposure to rock guitar, and if you listen to the early Kiss albums, I would still argue those songs are phenomenal, most of them. And when you consider that their first album came out in 1974, his solos, while semi-simplistic and while pentatonic based, I think they still sound good. You can scoff if you want to, but this is the guy who made me want to pick up a guitar, and he's also the reason that I own 4 Les Pauls at this point. Ace Frehley. I saw Kiss on the reunion tour with all 4 original members, and it was freaking amazing. And Ace was great. Anyway, next. Michael Schenker. You may or may not have expected this one. Guitarist with UFO, and he was in the Scorpions at one point. He's had Michael Schenker Band, all kinds of different projects that he's been involved in. And he's a guy who pretty much sort of sticks to the pentatonic scale to solo, but nobody does it like he does. Nobody plays pentatonic rock solos like Michael Schenker, and I can always listen to this guy play, and I'm just struck by how much he can do with just that basic scale. All right, I'm exaggerating a little bit. Obviously, he uses other scales, but still, listen to this guy play. It's like classic rock leads, but like better. He's so good, and his rhythm playing is ridiculous. Anyway, Michael Schenker makes my top 10. Joe Satriani. Now, I gotta be honest, there's a lot of other guys that I considered to put in the top 10. Jeff Beck and some other players that we'll get to. But I think the reason I went with Joe is that I've seen him 3 or 4 times, and he's an example of a guy where I know what he's going to do on an album. I know what he does, right? I know what the bass is going to be. I know what the drums are going to be. I know the kind of rhythms he likes, and I know the kind of playing he does, the kind of leads. And yet, I'm still interested in it. He's a really melodic player, and, there are a lot of guys who can play a million notes a second, but there's always just a cool melodic hook to everything Joe does. Joe's impressive, and he makes my top 10. I'm glad to have seen him so many times, and I hope to see him some more. Stevie Ray Vaughn. All right, I made fun of the blues until I heard Stevie Ray. And Stevie Ray is the guy who made me want to buy a Strat, and who to this day makes me want to keep playing a Strat. Just the energy of this guy and his playing, and watching him in concert, any of the concert videos, he's just ridiculous, and his tone is ridiculous. He inspired millions of guitar players, including me, one of my musical heroes, and wow, such an amazing talent. So he makes my top 10 for sure. I'm still trying to sound like him when I play Strat, and I'm still failing, but it's good to have high goals, right? Finally, we get to the end of my list, and at the end of my list is Tommy Emmanuel. Now, I've seen Tommy in concert. I've seen him get up on a stage, just him and his guitar, and just blow the doors off the place. If you've never seen any footage of Tommy Emmanuel playing acoustic, you need to go YouTube this guy. He's from Australia, and in my opinion, he's one of the greatest acoustic guitar players who ever lived. And that's not hyperbole. He's ridiculously good. He's also incredibly good on electric, if you ever see any footage of him playing electric. And he was crazy entertaining, just crazy entertaining. Any guy that can move you with just an acoustic guitar. I mean, let's be real here, folks. I don't know that anybody else on this list could pick up an acoustic guitar and do what this guy can do. Just crazy talented. Okay, it's really hard to pick 10 people because really I wanted to include all these other folks. Right, so real quick, Phil X, Steve Hackett, Steven Wilson, Larry Carlton, John Mayer, Eric Johnson, Jimmy Page, Jimi Hendrix, John Five, Al Di Meola, Joe Bonamassa, Jeff Beck, Richie Blackmore, Steve Vai, Randy Rhoads, man, Joe Walsh, Charlie Christian, the guy who basically invented lead guitar, Rick Derringer for all those really cool riffs. And I'm probably forgetting a bunch of other, like the guys in Kansas deserve a mention. Kerry Lifgren, I forget the other guy. There's so many good guitar players. I picked a top 10 just to make a fun video. And honestly, if you ask me again 2 years from now, I might pick 7 of the same guys and then 3 from this list. I'm a huge fan of everybody on this list. It's really hard to not include these guys. I mean, Phil X made me buy a guitar with a P90 just because of the aggressiveness and the sound that he got. Oh my goodness. Al Di Meola, just a ridiculous player. I've seen Eric Johnson live. He was amazing. All these guys. So anyway, I had to pick 10, so I did. So short video today, just kind of a little slideshow, but I would be very interested in hearing your opinions. Who makes your top 10? Probably I forgot somebody that I'm going to kick myself over later. But, there was a Friday deadline and I had to get the video done, so I did. As always, thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing, thumbs up, leave a comment. That would be great. And as always, I will see you again next Friday at 5.